Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here, Wednesday the 14th of June 2023. Right, hot on the back of hopefully finishing the reparations of the Fury SS gearbox. We're moving on to this briefly, which in this shot doesn't appear to be very recognisable, but with a bit wider you can see it's the B25SS Gold Star. Now, subscribers will note from a community post over Whitsun weekend that I had quite a good run out on this to visit on the Saturday the BSA Owners Members Camp at Mallory Park, just as a day visitor on the Saturday to join them on the run over to the Great Central Heritage Railway at the station at Corn, which is quite a nice ride out. And all in all, had a good day out and put about 80 miles on the bike. But we did have some slight problems due to, again, a failing battery. And ultimately this has been traced briefly down to it not charging, not the battery itself. The battery is very good, actually. Don't like the colour, but it's a very good battery, gel battery, pretty new, and it charges up very well, no problem at all, and holds its charge for a long while on a straight drain. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I got home with it and I've run the meter across a few things. And I think the output from the alternator is okay. I've got a funny feeling that this has electronic ignition and a voltage reg. I think the voltage reg isn't providing a charge to the battery, or it's not regulating it properly anyway. So anyway, I thought I'd look into this a bit, because the other thing is that with B25SSs and B50s as well, and I believe the Ts as well as the SSs, you should be able to run with no battery, just on a capacitor. So I thought I'd have a bit of digging around. So I've taken the electrics box off and lifted the lid on this, and you can see that they've fitted the electronic ignition unit, CDI here, on the lid. But at the expense of removing a capacitor, which should sit here in that space, and also have left that's the indicator flasher unit flapping about. So that's the reason why it wouldn't run with a flat battery. The wiring's okay, but it's a bit messy, and because I've made modifications to it, there's wires chopped off here and just terminated with tape. And there's obviously been additions to this as well, because the charging leads have to go all the way back to where they've mounted the regulator, which is behind that battery there and they've mounted it on the air filter housing on the battery side of that. Anyway, the thought then was, well, do I change the voltage regulator, which looks to me like a Lucas item, or do I see what I've got in stock? And you know what's coming, don't you? I've got items in stock to put this back to original, which to me would be a benefit, because I'd like to have the capacitor ignition capability there just in case, because you know, with this and the problems I had last year with the battery on the Rocket 3 and originally on that with again electronic ignition units, you know, once they fail, they fail. There's no real get you home option. So I've hunted through the stash. I knew I'd got one of these boxes complete somewhere, and hey ho, off we go. Boom. So I got the box, found the box. First thing to note was that the rubber mountings are perished. One or two of them are anyway. There we go. They're beginning to separate, so they're no good. But one is you can get these rubbers new from the original manufacturer, I believe. Drill them out and pop rivet them back in. Or alternative, what I can do in my case is we've got a good lid here. Actually, this probably looks like a replacement lid, but it's to the same specification. It's got good rubbers on it. And this, I believe, is the earlier mounting pattern as well, which we want to retain. And that's what this was too. They did modify it 2 or 3 times, I believe. Don't ask me which way around it is, whether this is earlier or middle or late. It should be early, with the bike being very early, but I'll need to look in Brad Jones' book to verify that, which I might do before I publish this video. Anyway, lifting the lid, because as I say, we can swap lids. They should be interchangeable, these two. Then we've got everything in it as it was installed by the factory, including all the wiring. The reason why the Zener diode appears to be wafting around in the breeze is that I've had to disassemble that because it actually is mounted on the underside of the lid from that point there, which is a bit unusual because I always thought that there's that nice mounting point there, which I'm sure originally were designed with that pattern there for the Zener. Why they'd never fitted there, I don't know, but according to the parts book as well, yep, it fits on the underside of the lid there, so that's where we'll put it back. So that's the only reason why that's wafting around in the breeze. It shouldn't be, but you can see in here what most are missing is, first of all, we've got the original capacitor. We'll need to check whether these items work or not, but also we've got, it's rubber mounting, which also includes holes, cutouts for the flasher unit and the condenser, the points condenser, which sits snugly in there too. And as I say, it is also one of the ones with the plug for the headlight wiring, which they did do away with in later revisions. They went back to bullets, and nobody seems to know why. So that's good. So we've got that, which is good news, and going to fill some of the gaps. I've got a new old stock wiring harness, braided. Got a points back plate. And it seems almost a shame really to use these with its original instructions and packing, brand new. Cost me a bob or two, but that's the proper original stuff, none of this pattern rubbish. So that should be good. These are fairly common auto advanced units, got one of those. 12 degree, which is correct. That's the bolt for the mounting of the auto advanced unit, so just need the correct size washer for that so we don't clamp the cam. And then we're just about there really. So we need to make wiring harness an amendment, so as I've got this, we may as well put it on it and it's properly braided, whereas the other one on it that's on it's been messed about with and taped up. I forgot to mention as well, there it is, somewhere in there, right at the bottom there, is a rectifier, the original rectifier. Again, if these things haven't been clouted about too much, then these should be all right, but I do have spares. So I've got new all stock condensers, flasher unit, rectifier, a Zener. You can still get the capacitors. They're not necessarily the same make, but you can get the same. They look exactly the same, and you still get the coils. So I'm gonna do it. I know some people say, here he goes again, taking off the electronic ignition, etc., etc. Yeah, I am. but I want the proper box, electrics box back on with capacitor ignition, so I'm willing to sacrifice some bits and pieces. And I don't like where that regulator is at the back there as well, it's wrong. So what we're going to do then is take this box off. We've just got to undo all the connections here. We'll be going back to standard colour wiring, so I just about know that off by heart, so I'm not bothered at the moment about ripping this lot apart without documenting it. The good news is that, as I say, it still has its standard multi-pin plug from the headlight, so that is all correct, so we don't have to touch that, which is great news. We can just get that out of the way and just rip this lot out. And that's what we'll do to start with, and then we'll need to take the seat off to put the new harness in, but most of the harness is at this end, as you can imagine. All that's going to the back end from the battery is towards the battery, even across the oil tank. All you've got is the battery and the rear light cluster. That's it at that end. There is nothing else. So let's get on first with just taking this lot off, and then we'll look to put this lid on this box. And the only thing I've noticed with this wiring is that it's all standard except for one. There it is. For some reason that one's been cut. So, and I think that's power to the lights, brown and green. But at least we've got enough there to be working with to either put a bullet on there or put an extension. But the rest of it hopefully looks good. We'll need to do a bit of cleaning up of this as well. But it's looking pretty good. So let's start then with the electrics box. Right, that's its box off. Pretty straightforward, but a couple of observations. First one is the right hand handlebar switch is a replacement, which looks like a Lucas item, but it's one of these modern patterns. First I noticed the wires were much thinner than original. Secondly, it's black sheathing on it rather than grey. It'll work, but the switch itself, I can't show you from here, but this is indicator, so up and down, but you click and then you can move it a bit further. It just doesn't feel like the original either, but it works, so we'll keep it. That's fine. And then we can plug in these other wires, which in this case will be one will be a stop switch probably for the engine, which they've missed off. The other one probably, yeah, red and white there, is starter motor, which obviously works on the Fury SS, but was never fitted to this. Now the other observation as well is that with respect to the lid of its existing box that we want to transfer onto the original box, that's not going to be too straightforward because the ignition unit is pop riveted on, so I'm going to have to grind those. I do have pop rivets, I'm not sure whether they've got them that big, so I'll have to grind that off because this is going to get in the way of the capacitor, and that's obviously the reason why they didn't run the capacitor. And with it being fitted like this, it makes you wonder whether this pays an ignition unit or assembly has been built for 71 singles, with it being all sort of plumbed into the original positions for the mounting rubbers. So not quite as simple as we thought, but not too bad. So next two jobs, but not tonight, because I spent too long in here with the Fury earlier on, who's videos just being published at the minute. So next job in the next clip will be grind the 2 rivets off, get rid of that, re-rivet, and the other job, oh yeah, we'll get the seat off and get the rest of the harness off. There's not much left to it back there, and we'll get rid of the voltage reg as well, which sits behind the battery. We might as well take the battery off too. We don't want to short that. Okay, back soon. Well, I was going to stop, but I just thought I'd finish taking this lid off, and just a couple of other observations. One, you know, firstly, a multitude of different connections and crimps and spades instead of bullets. And then I noticed this as well, I haven't touched any of this yet the coil is loose on its 2 mountings, and one of them is extremely loose, and that's a main earth there. And look at it, not even tight. So we hopefully we're tidying up quite a few problems, or potential problems here. But anyway, that's the lid free. I want to try and not damage the ignition unit, so we're just going to grind those 2 off, and that should be easy enough, but a job for tomorrow. Definitely not tonight, honest gov, cup of tea time. Right, see you in the next clip. Right everybody, a couple of days later, so seats off, so it's going to be easy just to remove the remaining ties and stuff of the old main harness, and we can just disconnect that at the back there at the junction box for the rear light. That's that done. And then I've also cleaned up the electrical box in stock as original. That's cleaned up well. I'm pretty confident most of that should be okay. And what I've also done is remove the electronic ignition unit from the underside of the other box lid, which we're going to use because its mounting rubbers are in good condition, whereas the others over here from the original one aren't. I put new sealing rubbers in for the harness coming out of the there's 2 harnesses coming out of the box, so at least try and get some sort of seal on them to prevent too much water getting in, although there are drain holes in the bottom of this. And what I've had to do as well though is I had to grind off the 2 pop rivets here and here that were holding the cradle. Here it is over here, holding the cradle for the electronic ignition box. And I haven't got pop rivets of that size, mine are smaller, and also my pop riveter won't go to the diameter of the centre stud either. So what I've done is use a couple of little UNF nuts and bolts and made sure they're all flush on the other side so they don't interfere with any of the electrical components. I'm sure there's plenty of room now. A little bit prouder than the pop rivets. I've also put a spring washer on there as well so they don't come undone. So we're just about good to go with this. Next job is to put solder a bullet on there, and at the same time while doing that job, as I showed you on the wiring down from the right hand switch, some of which has been all blanked off, etc. This is indicator switch, as you can tell from these wires, and we know it's a pattern because these wires are very, very thin. But anyway, while we're at it, we'll solder some bullets on there, because one of these is going to be for the kill switch, and the other one will be redundant because it's electric start. So we'll put a bullet on it and just a connector on it just to insulate it. Right, so we'll do the soldering now, and we'll also get the rest of this main harness off, and then we'll mount the box and use that as our, if you like, center point to begin wiring things up, because once that's on, we can also then put the new harness on, which I've already unraveled and had a look at, and it's fine. This one even includes, it is allegedly new old stock, and it did have the right part number. If I can find it, yeah, it even includes the a braided spare for the horn. I didn't realise they were braided down to the horn, but anyway, that's nice. Where are we? There's my brass bullets with connectors. I've got some more. That's just a small selection. So yeah, here we are. Make a good one up from that lot. Right, let's get soldering. Right, battery box all built up with its replacement lid. And before you ask, I did remember to bolt the Zener on to the underside. Put the terminal in the right position so it's not rubbing against anything else. Now all we need to do with this is to mount the horn mounting, which is this, which goes that way around this, so that this rubber hanger here is suspended from the horn mount, and then the horn mount itself bolts up to the frame. So this is the front, so it bolts up there like so. If we get those white cables out of the way, goes onto there, and then the horn mounts on here. Now this, it wasn't originally designed like this. The horn was going to be mounted actually on the electrics box itself. On the underside there, you can see those, they're just two blanking set screws now, but that's where the horn originally was mounted, I think, on some very early models, or maybe some of the prototypes, and they found that the weight of the horn was actually affecting the mountings. It was too heavy at the front, and you can understand why, really. So it got its own bracket, and then the box suspends from the bracket. So that's that done. We've got the main harness off. This is just the new one, just hanging there ready, and the only thing left is to get this voltage regulator, and you can see where they've mounted it behind the battery box. So I've had to take the battery box off. That sits here and is suspended by two rather long bolts that go through the frame at the back here, and also hold on the tool tray on the other side. So all that's off. At the rate we're going, actually, we'll have the whole bike stripped down in about half an hour. So they've mounted it actually to this is the plenum chamber at the back of the air filter, and they've mounted it there, and you can't get it from the other side. So I can imagine that the two, let's get into focus, the two mounting screws here are effectively self-tappers. So we'll have a couple of holes in the plenum chamber. So what I intend to do is just put the self-tappers back in once we've got that regulator off. And I would imagine they're metric heads, but anyway, we'll soon get those off, and then I'll bring you back. Yeah, we were right. These are self-tappers, 8mm AF heads. So it was easy enough to unscrew and remove the voltage reg, and I've replaced them because this in the plenum is the clean air side going into the carb. So we want to maintain that without letting anything in through what would have been two holes. So they're back in, and they're hidden quite well by the battery box, so, and the side panel, so not worried about that. Right, so what we can do next is mount the electrics box. I'm just going to check this in the parts book, this mounting point here, because I'm not sure whether there should be a rubber grommet in the centre of that hole there. Not sure. I don't know why it's this a big nut mounting. That's original, and you can see where it's been turning on this. But is there something else that needs to go in the middle there? We'll check first. Perhaps not. Because the horn itself, mounting just there, does have its own rubber grommets, which the bolts pass through, which are these. We've got some new ones. Let me just check anyway. It might just be as simple as that. But quite why there's that nice big nut there, I'm not sure, to be honest. Anyway, let's check. Well, it's all coming back to me now, having read Brad Jones' book, which I'll show you shortly. But the B25SS parts book shows this as the early lid and mountings, not what we have. And in fact, this parts book was never amended, but it was sort of modified by a service bulletin supplement, I think in March 71, according to Brad, I think. But Brad's book that I'm referring to is this one. And in that, this is where he describes the early lid, which is the one that's in the parts book. Then there's the one that we have, which is B25 and early B50. And then later on, they did change them again, which is the ones I've seen, to this arrangement. And those items there that appear to be in white, they're not. They're actually rubbers. So it's still rubber mounted, but with two metal brackets. The only thing, so that this isn't going to help, it doesn't tell us what's underneath there, so we'll just leave it as is, because there wasn't anything under there anyway. And we'll do some further investigation in the future. But one thing that I have noticed, which we haven't got, there's supposed to be these spacers on the studs, and we haven't got that, and I didn't take them off. So we'll offer up the box anyway and do a bit of jiggery pokery and see what we need. We should be able to sort something out to act as spacers if we need them. Well, now we're cooking on gas. Looks a mess, but I can assure you it's not, and it's going to be all right. So, mounted the electrics box, fine. Found something that I'll do as spacers, and they're really just large, sort of shouldered nuts, because that's all I've got at the moment. But it does require those for the box, you know, to fit parallel and for it to line up nicely with the down tube at the front. So before, this end would have been up somewhat. Whether it didn't really affect it, I don't think, but anyway, that's a bit more like how it's supposed to be, not perfect. So that's on. We've started connecting up bits and pieces of the main harness, just roughly laid out here. Battery out to the back there, just got to connect those 5 up there, all the same. Already done the rear brake light switch, which goes off down the other side from there. Front brake light switch done from the front. It's just a case of matching up the colours, and from this it looks a bit of a mess, but from the box we've got a group here which are obviously for lights and for the dip switch, etc. Well, sorry, this is for handlebar switches, so this is going to be for lights and dip and main, and those connect up to these that come down from that left-hand handlebar switch, one of which is the horn, which is correct. I was thinking, well, where's the horn? There it is. I've got the horn yet to mount on here, but I'm just changing brackets on that because I found a crack in the bracket. And then the other set is here. So this is the other right hand handlebar switch, which is mainly indicators and kill, and there's the group there that they're going to connect up to. So that's fairly straightforward. And then there's just a few others that are on a separate bit on the main loom here. One's, there it is, earth as well, which is that one. That's the horn there that goes over to the handlebar switch, and then the horn wires themselves that go down to the horn, there we are here, braided, that we pointed out before. So they'll go to here. So you basically got two main groups plus a few bits and pieces outside of that, and it's not rocket science. And as I'm going along, I'm trying to do it so the wires are routed, so we can bundle them together at the end and tidy them up and strap them cleanly down, so they don't look like spaghetti. As you can see, also got the battery box back on. I think I already showed you the fact that the two grub screws at the bottom there we've left in. If we can get down low enough, there they are. And drill tray over the other side is back in too. That's really rudimentary, but yeah, similar to the A65s, just a bit of tin bent. So we're nearly there. It's getting a bit late this evening, so I'm going to call it there. We've made great progress. I mean, obviously we don't know if some of these components work yet anyway, but there's only one way to find out. Connect it all up and run it, and run the test meter. The easiest thing is putting a meter across the battery when it's running. We'll know straight away whether it's charging properly, so that's an easy test. Obviously if it's running, the coil's working properly, and then it's just a case of testing all the lights out, etc. So yeah, mainly rectifier and Zeno that we're probably concerned about, and if they are working and we're still not getting a charge, then it's got to be down to the alternator, and I would suspect the rotor has lost a bit too much of its magnetism. But I've had the rotor out, it feels okay, but that's something we can do next as well, is put the primary cover back on. Right, that'll do for now. I'll bring you back in the next clip, whenever that is, to try and finish this off before we do a test run. I've obviously got the points etc to do yet, but that's fairly straightforward too. Right, okay, rushing around a little bit with this, but yeah, this is supposed to be the runner at the moment and it's not running, and we want to do some riding, so back soon. Right, ploughing on with all the connectivity before we tidy this up, but trying to, it doesn't look like it, but there is some semblance of order there to enable us to, or to facilitate, if you like, bundling these together when we're all connected. So one or two bits left to do. You'll notice here the blue wire, which is main feed to the headlight filaments. This connector is down from the dip switch, and it took me ages to try and find where the wire was coming out of the main electrical box, and then I found it. It's been cut. It's like the brown and green wire, and that was actually flush with the black sort of insulation cover. So I've managed to pull a little bit out, and we'll get a bullet on there and we'll be able to connect that up. I don't know why this is so long. This is white and yellow, which is the kill switch, but that's all connected now. I've just got one white to put a new bullet on, because that decided to come off, and then that goes into this big 6-way connector here to join all the whites together. White is effectively your live feed from your ignition switch, and then the only other one, which is going to be a blank end, a blind end, is this spare wire, which for future models was going to be the electric start button, and is on the Fury, red and white. Other than that, I think we're all connected. Oh, there's obviously the horn spades are here when we put the horn on there, and there's also at the back here somewhere black and white. Come on, where are you? Can't see it. Can anybody see there it is, right on top. The black and white wire, that's down to the points. So that has its own little single wire sub harness. So just making that up now from some spare wire that had black and white. So we'll put a bullet on one end, and then the other end we'll need to put a loop on to connect up to the points, but we'll do that afterwards. Let's get the bullet on first and get it connected up. So the soldering iron's on again for a few bullets, and then to complete the connections. Back shortly. Well, we're getting there. So I've bundled them together for now, and I always try and put firstly rubber tie wraps around these, but secondly as well to tie the actual connectors, not the wires themselves, as far as possible, except for this big one in the middle, which is all lives, and the bullets are protruding a little, so I need to press them in a little further if I can, but they are as tight as hell. These sort of 6 ways, if you like, 3 at each end, connectors are always difficult. Also put an earth on to the motor, which we'll need now with this box. So that's done, and then these 2 wires here for the horn, which down there, and we've got black and white, which will end up going down to the points. So there we are for now, just about there. Of course, all this needs testing, so we'll put a battery on at some point, but for now that'll be it from me for a couple of weeks. But I won't publish this as one. I'll come back and do a bit of finishing off on this, and we'll fire it up. I mean, essentially all we've got to do is put the horn on, battery back on, connect up the points, time it, and we should be there. And we can put a meter across the battery, then when it's running we'll be able to determine then whether it's charging. Right, off for a bit of a break, back soon. Right, 2 weeks later or so, after a bit of a welcome break in the Yorkshire dales and moors, and back on the B25 after a weekend escapade with that, which is subject to separate videos, one of which you've already seen. Right, so I was just tinkering with this last night before getting stuck in. So the horn's now back on. I had to get another bracket because this the original bracket had split down the bottom here, and I am going to weld it up, but in the meantime we've got this one anyway. Got the proper fastenings on now with new rubber grommets that surround the horn, so it is allegedly rubber mounted. Wired up okay with the 2 remaining wires there. Checked for continuity, etc., and put a battery on, and I've done a bit of testing with the electrics. Now we're all wired up. Need a bit more tidying up here so we can get it up nice and tidy up and inside the tank, and I'll put a couple of tie wraps, well, not tie wraps, the proper harness straps. I'll put a couple around the frame here. Just going to back you up a little bit so you can see what's going on. That's better. But yeah, we're almost there. So the replacement box came with its own ignition switch, and the key was with it, which was great. And to be honest, you know, the action of even the ignition switch is much better than the box that was on it. Anyway, first things first, if you turn it anti-clockwise, you get the parking light position. So that was the first thing to test. And there we go, front and back. And I believe in that position you can remove the key. It's a very old-fashioned thing now, nobody uses them, but let me just check. I'm on the other side there. That's me there. Yeah, you can remove the key. Anyway, back to off, and then one position clockwise is ignition, and we've got oil warning light. We've also got indicators both sides, and we've got horn, I think. And we haven't got flash yet, and that's because the lights aren't on, is it? Anyway, lights. And there's your first problem. No lights. Oh, because the ignition switch has to be in the second position, doesn't it? Moron. Now we should have side lights. That's second position clockwise ignition switch. We've got side lights. Now we should get main, which we don't. Nope. Any flash horn. No flashes. Right. That's the first thing we can chase down then. So first things first, turn everything off. So we've got side lights, but we haven't got main lights. So I've done something wrong here, and remember that I had to drag out the blue cable which had been chopped. So we just need to check round blue, blue and white, blue and red. They're the ones. And actually we haven't taken out, ooh, and they all come off here. I wonder if that's the problem. Maybe I've not pushed the connector in far enough yet. Feels like it. Maybe we've got a bad contact. Let's have a fiddle. Let's have a fiddle. Right, on lights. And there's your answer. Oh, we've got lights. Yeah, we've got lights. Funnily enough, the lights go off when I try and put the headlight on. Oh. Yeah, I've still got horn, still got all that. Just down by the ignition switch at the minute. I think it's this connector. No, it's not coming on. Right, I'll have a look. Let's have a look inside the headlight. Anyway, fuse hasn't blown, we haven't got any shorts, but something somewhere between the dip switch wires coming out of the handlebar switches, something's not right, or we might not quite have a good enough live wire to the headlight. Right, let's have a look at the headlight. Well, damn me, all I've done is taken the headlight off and gingerly rested it on the mudguard, and now everything seems to be working. Dip and also flash. So we've got a dicky wire in here somewhere, so let's have a bit of a dig about. Well, it looks like a bit like spaghetti, doesn't it? But it's not bad in there at all, actually. There's a bit of a mix of connections, but in general it's not bad, and I've just tightened them all up, and then as I was tightening up the main light switch feed wire fell out, so it was obviously loose, but it's tight now. There's nothing wrong with the switch. So that was the issue. That was obviously loose in its connector. Right, so we'll button this back up, and then we'll get back on to the job in hand, which really is to get the ignition side wired up, and we'll check spark, etc., and time it up. And the reason I'd like to do that today is to get the bike running again, because it's BSA Owners Club tomorrow night. So let's see if a couple of hours this evening can get this knocked on the head, and then we might have a garage where half the bikes aren't in a pile of pieces. Right, as you can see, I'm in the electrics bin, and what I've been looking for in all the spare wiring and stuff that I've got are the small, I don't know what you call them, not clips, but they're sort of specialist loops that connect the ignition wire to the points. And I found an old set of points off a triple, this looks like, And luckily it's been stripped, but they've left these little clips. And that's what we need to solder on the end of our wire that goes down the front tube to the points on the B25. Get rid of that insulation. One-handed. There we go. That's what we want. So it's an electrical loop, but it's got a couple of stubs on it to prevent it turning, and those go on the, those are sort of engage on the, well, as it was on here, on the spring. Right, so we just need to gently unsolder that and solder it onto our wire down here. Once we have threaded it through its sealing rubber, never forget to do that first. Right, we'll crack on with that. Well, here's something to look out for, which I hadn't anticipated. So I've got the loop soldered onto the wire and connected to the spring of the points. I've got the engine in the static timing position as per the marks on the rotor, and I've checked the rotor's correct by measuring the distance of the piston in advance from top dead centre, and that's right. But what we're going to bear in mind is that this rotates anti-clockwise, the auto advance mechanism, and I knew there was something wrong here, because the trouble is that it's advancing clockwise, not anti-clock, because I was just about to set the fine tuning of the timing to and to put the cam on full advance, but it's advancing the wrong way, so that means the springs are on the wrong way around, I think. So I've got to take all this off again. Anyway, let's have a look at this, because I'm wondering whether this is the correct auto advance unit. It was advertised as the correct one. Can you put them on the wrong way around? Or the weights on the wrong way around? Anyway, let's find out. Yep, I think this is the wrong unit. You can't rebuild that to get it to advance the other way, because if you put the bob weights in the other way around, for instance, then you get in the way of the spring mounting. And just trying to get some pointers from parts book or handbook. In the handbook, it does show, you know, an outline of the back of the contact breaker here, and you can clearly see, I think, there you go. If I do it like that, that bob weight there is the other way around to this one. The weight at the bottom of the pivot and not above the pivot. So this is for a motor where the cam spins clockwise, and we need it to spin anti-clock. And I was getting confused because that little mark there is where you check the points gap, and normally that's when the points are just opening, i.e. this is the ramp up, not that side. So again, this is clockwise, turn that way. Damn it. I'll have a look through my stuff. I don't think I've got one. I remember, I bought it second hand off eBay, and it just said, yeah, B25, B50, 12 degrees, blah, de da, de da. Dummy boy here didn't check rotation, and they didn't mention it either. Let me see what I've got in the stash. Well, I thought so. I haven't got one in that stash. I know I've got a new old stock one for Lightning, A65, A70, because they're the same as the Norton Commando, but I don't think they're the same as the singles. But I can check that in the parts book. Let's see what the part numbers are like before I start messing about digging that out of the new old stock stash. So look at the parts book. Okay, checked parts books and other bits and pieces, and the B25, B50 auto advance units are the same, but they're not the same as the A65, which you'd expect. So I haven't got one, a new old stock one in stock. So I've had to order one on eBay. And yeah, it's coming from America. This is wrong. Wrong direction. And I keep thinking, you know, is there something I'm missing here? Can you rebuild this to go in the opposite direction? You can't. Because if you move the bob weights around, they're going to be in front of the tongs for the springs and stuff. So I don't know what that's off. 12 degrees is right, but there's no other part number on it. Anyway, I've been duped on eBay, so just beware. Right, so I've done a bit more tidying up anyway, while we're at it. Panels, side panels and that back on. Just about sorted the wiring out. I only had a couple of these metal clips left, but I've managed to hold up everything at this end with that, I think, okay. I insulate them around wiring with a bit of shrink wrap. And at this end, I know, temporarily I've just had to tape that there just to keep it out of the way, but I'll order some more of these and we'll get some in. So we can get the tank on now. All the electrics are working, bar the spark, which we haven't tested yet. And then we'll just wait for that auto advance unit to time it up. So I won't be going on this to the club evening tonight, but I'll be going anyway. Right, I'll bring you back in a few days when hopefully we'll be able to finish this off. And then at the same time, in parallel, we're working on this, following its fuel starvation issues. So we know what the problem with that is, and there'll be a separate video on that. Right, I'll bring you back, I say, in a few days' time. Right, a few days later and back on the B25SS after hopefully sorting out the Aerial 3. And back on with this auto advance because I'm a bit concerned that the second-hand one that I've had to try and secure in the States, which is the proper anti-clockwise rotation, might not be here until just before Founders Day, which is a bit close to the mark. So I was thinking, right, I know I've got one somewhere in the stash, because at one point we were thinking of possibly trying to modify one to suit the Fury SS. Then I was thinking, well, actually the cam rotation on the Fury SS, yeah, that is anti-clockwise because there's an idler gear. So I was thinking there must be one here somewhere. So rooting through the stash, this is the one that I purchased off eBay locally, and it's wrong. And as these are for clockwise rotation, they're almost certainly for Triumph twins, because the Triumph twins have got the idler gear between the crank and the cams, so the cams are going to go in the same direction. So rooting through the stash, great stuff, found one. Big problem, it's the same. So anyway, I thought I'll go and have a look through the whole of the Fury stuff. Bingo. Found one, and you can see the bob weights are on the opposite way round, and it advances anti-clock, which I can't demonstrate, but it does on its gov. Anyway, yeah, it twists that way around. So we've got one. And I've got one on the way from the States. Anyway, all this lot, the others will go on eBay. Right, let's get on then with putting this on. So we've just got to fit this, put the points back plate cover back in, and then we're about ready to go for some running testing, I think, and also charging testing. So I'll put the primary case, that's all back on the other side. I need to just put some oil in that. But let's get this side finished, and then we can check initially for spark. Right, the moment of truth. I've put the auto advance in there. We're not timed up yet, but the points back plate is in and secure. So what we're going to do before we do anything else is see if we do get a spark. So there's a spark plug on this side. Let me just lean over, find the switch. Right, ignition is on, I think. Yep, we've got oil pressure warning light. So if I separate the points now, we should get a spark. And we don't. In fact, there's no power down there at all. Right, first thing to check out then, continuity. Right, done some testing and we have got a problem, but it's not bad. So, coil-wise, we've got yellow and white, which is the live feed to the coil. And the reason it's yellow or white and not white is because the white live goes up to the kill switch up here. So first job was to check that, and power coming back down through the yellow wire, back into the box, into the coil, and yet we're getting power to that. Power's coming out the coil on the other side, which is the wire then off to the condenser and the points. So you think then, if it's condenser, we're going to have to take the box to bits. Anyway, obviously we've got the wire coming externally then to go down to the points, and that's this one coming out the box, black and white. And there's a connector here because we made up this wire going down to the points. We've got power that comes to here out of the box from the condenser, that's good, but power's not coming from here down to the points. So let's just check that again. So we'll put ignition on. We've got the little tiddly old multimeter is on 50 volts DC. This might be the wrong way around. Oh. Could well be the wrong way around. Don't tell me we're not getting anything now. This might be embarrassing. That's too long. Just a moment, let me get you set up a bit better and then you can see. Right, that's better. So I've got the crock clip on the metal inside that connector there. And there we have it. That's ignition on, ignition off. That's a 50 volt dial, so we're getting 12 volts, which is good. So now what we'll do is we'll do the resistance test. Right, I did a continuity test on the wire and getting tons of resistance, no open circuit. So that was fine. So I've now reconnected the points wire at the top end. And when I turn the ignition on, let's see if we get 12 volts at the bottom. And we do. So that probably indicates that I was getting a short on the connection down here, and it is very close to the points housing here. So let me just rejig that. But anyway, that's hopefully good news. Well, as long as we've got a good capacitor, of course, because the capacitor might still be allowing power to go through and not working effectively, but we've got plenty of those in stock, but it's just a bit of a pain to replace. So let's refit this properly. I've cut away a bit of insulation here to give me a bit more slack in the wire at this end. It was a bit tight, and I'll try and route it a little bit differently. And I'll bring you back then for another spark test. Right, all buttoned up again, and a lot happier with that because there's a nice gap there now, which there wasn't before. A bit more slack, and the wire is tucked away nicely at the back there through its rubber sealing grommet. So, spark plugs up here. Points are closed at the moment, as though not timed up yet, not gapped it or anything. Excuse me while I reach over. It's ignition on, and then we're just gonna play with the points. Hopefully. Where are we? Spark. Okay. Whew. Ignition off while I remember. Right, we're in business. Now we can time her up. So on this, the way that you do this is, as I was checking before when we were using the wrong auto advance, we did do a static time and measure the piston before TDC, and we found that the alternator rotor on this is correct. It's given the right timing mark, so we'll static time it on the other side with the alternator rotor mark against the pointer. Set the cam, auto advance cam, on full advance, and then we'll get a reasonable static timing position to enable us to start the bike, and then we can strobe it up on the other side. Okay, there we go. The rotor mark is on the pointer. I know it's not 180 degrees out because I've been turning the engine over and looking in the spark plug hole to see when the valves are opening. So this is the firing stroke after the inlet valve has opened, so we know it's in the right place. So we know now to time it up manually on the other side, move the cam around, full advance till the points are just opening, and we'll take it from there. Right, all timed up statically with the bulb process, so all buttoned up down there now. So we've got spark plug out still, sat on the bike. We'll turn the ignition on, one click at the front, oil pressure warning light switch on, should get spark. And we do. Don't know if you saw that. Just as I kick it, of course, and disturb the bike, you don't see it. There we go. Hope you saw that. Anyway, it is sparking. Right, tank on, rotor cover on, fuel up, see if she fires up. How many of you were screaming at me saying you've forgotten the oil? Nearly did. Right, quarter of a pint, straight 30, going in. Right, let's see if she fires up. I must be feeling confident because I've put all the tools away, including the hammer to threaten it. Right, tank's back on, fuel line's on, fuel on, tickle. No chokes fitted to this, and I don't think there's any need really. Give it a good tickle. No, actually, leaks ignition still on. Stop that. A bit of compression. Another tickle. Contact. Oil pressure warning lights off. Got ignition. Got lights. Sounding good. Look at that. Now, yeah, it's not quite warmed up yet, but it's almost ticking over, and with the electronic ignition that I had on, with possibly the Duff voltage regulator, I could not get it to tick over. It would either race a bit, you know, about 2000 RPM, or it would settle down here and it would just die. So I'm feeling a bit chuffed with that. Let's just raise the throttle stop a little tiny bit. It'll probably be all right though when it warms up, to be honest. Just a hair. Oil pressure warning light's still off. That's fantastic. Right, well, nearly starting on tick over. Ticklish. Alright. That's just something I said. Okay, there you go. Not quite got tick over right yet, but we need to set that up when it's warm, and also we need to strobe it up. Oil pressure warning light's still off. We'll come back to that, make sure that's working. Right, there you are. One of the tests we didn't do before on the electric side was brake light. Yeah, brake light's working on front. And all this side was off, obviously couldn't test it before. Yeah, on the rear brake. And also battery. Good indication of battery condition is the horn. So the only other test we've got to do now is to check if this is charging. Give me a minute then, and I'll get the good meter out. And we'll take this right hand side panel cover off where the battery lives, and we'll just put see what volts are going across it. I know it'll also be a check of the Zener to make sure it's not overcharging, undercharging, etc. Yeah, let's do that, and then we're finished. Nearly. Right, we'll leave it there for now. So I've got a better meter than this, but I need training on it yet because I've only just got it. So I couldn't work out quite what settings to use, but I think this is good enough, rough and ready as it is, to show that we're definitely getting an output from the alternator. It was going up to 13 to 14 volts, and it was doing more than that initially when it was charging up the battery. So I think the Zener's kicking in too. But we need to do some more testing. But anyway, I'm dead chuffed with that. We need to get it on the road then. And that'll probably be the next video, is getting some road shots. And there's a potential then that, now the date today is Saturday the 8th of July 2023. There's the Mallory Bike Bonanza, Mallory Park next weekend. BSA Owners Club have got an enclosure there. Might think about a ride over there. one day. I need to get some details of that. But the following weekend is Founders Day, when I'll definitely be there. Just on the Sunday it is. That's one day meeting, Stamford Hall in Leicestershire. And we'll be taking the B25SS. Unless it breaks down again, of course, then of course we'll take this. But before that, during the week next week, if the weather's okay, let's try and get out and do a bit of a test on it and tune it a bit as well. And yeah, officially I know I've got to strobe it up, but anyway, we're definitely not far off. Okay, we'll leave it there. That's more than long enough, I'm sure, by the time I put this lot together. But there we go. Investigations into a battery not charging shows that half its original components are missing, and there's question marks over the voltage regulator stroke rectifier. And I had original parts in stock, so it's gone back to original. And yeah, it's points, I know. Anyway, seems to be running. So I'm just going to put that points cover back on, put side panel back on, give it a bully, and we're there. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Appreciate your interest, any comments and subscriptions, and I'll see you all again very soon. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.